Tonight on Mark Latham's Outsiders, we're going to lift the lid on one of the organisations creating gender apartheid and employment quotas in Australia. They're called Male Champions of Change. We've got an interview, a wonderful interview with the Aussie legend Sam Kekovich about his friendship with Donald Trump, the importance of saving Australia Day and fighting against political correctness. We've also got Zeg's cartoons, the meme of the week, it's already got us into some strife. We've got the Outsiders Outhouse and the Left Lunatic of the Week. You might notice something about him, that red bandana is coming your way. I'm here in front of the Exchange Hotel in Kalgoorlie in Western Australia, a fantastic outsiders town. We've got a great show coming up, stay tuned. Trigger warning viewers, you've entered a very unsafe space. This is Mark Latham's Outsiders, Australia's most politically incorrect news and current affairs program. Thanks very much for watching. We try and give you all the necessary straight talk that's important for our country's future. We don't have any of the social engineering, the mainstream media elitism that you find. There's no subject here that's off limits. We don't have any taboos about language. We just try and give you straight information, so you can make up your own mind about Australia's future and the big international issues. Now, at the top of the show, I want to make a little announcement about the future of Mark Latham's Outsiders. This program and the platform overall, first on Facebook and now the show on YouTube, has been going for some 7 months. And I've got to say that I've been over the moon about the level of viewer support, the people who've watched, who send in the correspondence, who stop me in the street and say, isn't it great that we've got a program, a platform, alternative media, that's giving the other side of the story to the mainstream media. And so many people urge me to continue the fight against identity politics, against political correctness, against cultural Marxism. Well, we're going to do that, but in the reality of the world in which we live, we've also got to pay the bills. We've also got to pay the bills that are out there, the cost of the studio, the staff, the production. We've been doing it for 7 months, and we're at the point where we're moving to a subscription model in partnership with Rebel Media, Mark Latham's Outsiders and Rebel Media. We're moving to the subscription model. So this will be the last show, freely available on YouTube from next week, Wednesday the 25th of October. Please subscribe to this program, and you'll also get premium content, early access to the other program we've just started Up and Adam, a take on the daily news in the events of the week. Up and Adam has got plenty of good content as well. So it's important for people to support it if you can. I appreciate your support in the past. And if you can go to this website, Mark Latham's Outsiders/watch, you follow the links there and you can subscribe. The cost, I've got to say, we've tried to keep it as moderate as possible to pay our bills. $8 a month, $80 a year, or the early bird special of $69.99. So that's less than $1.50 a week to support our platform, and you get not only all the content that I can provide, you also get access to all the Rebel Media material. Ezra Levant and his programs, Tommy Robinson in London, everyone loves him, the important work he's doing in pushing back against radical Islam. So the Rebel shows are available. You can have a look at those to know what you're subscribing to. The rebel.media/shows, you can see it there on the website, the rebel.media/shows. And please support us into the future under this new model. I think it's important to keep this platform going. We don't have the $1 billion public budget of the ABC. We just don't have those resources available. And we don't have the resources of the mainstream media. And the important thing always is to tell the other side of the story. The truth is, week after week on this show, we've been putting information out there that the mainstream media just won't touch. Why? Because the media elites pretty well are in bed with the government elites and the corporate elites. A lot of the media outlets, they won't touch an outfit like Qantas for fear of repercussions with the Qantas advertising budget. We've highlighted that on the show, actually, with the pie face incident against Alan Joyce. And the reality is that these elites in various places, they socialise together, they go to the same dinner parties. So they have a lot of subjects that are off limits. Not here at Mark Latham's Outsiders. We try to give you the genuine information. Please support us under the subscription model to keep the platform going and hopefully I'll be talking to you many, many times in the future under those new arrangements. And back in just a short moment to talk about male champions of change. Now, one of the things viewers ask me all the time is, what's the common denominator? Where is the identity politics, the gender apartheid, the madness in Australia's public and private institutions actually coming from? And you've got to try and ask the question, why would major sporting organisations like the AFL and the NRL foul their own nest, lose support and viewers by jumping into the same-sex marriage debate to politicise their organisations? Why would corporate outfits like Qantas, Telstra, Australia Post, the big banks go down the path of diversity units and gender apartheid? Why would the Federal Police and the Australian Defence Force have female-only recruitment programs? Why would you find so many of these public and private institutions going down the path of abolishing meritocracy, judging people by race, gender and sexuality instead of merit? Well, here is the common denominator. All of these outfits I've mentioned, all of them, belong to an organisation called Male Champions of Change. It was set up by Elizabeth Broderick. Here she is. Here's a picture of Elizabeth Broderick. She was formerly the Sex Discrimination Commissioner at Australia's Human Rights Commission. And every organisation she touches, she wrecks. She's been involved in the Defence Force, the Federal Police, Australian Rugby, the university sector has suffered from her work, and she has set up this outfit called Male Champions of Change that is running amok through the institutions. It seems like it's a social club. They're under peer group pressure to support these crazy policies, and they put out a video to explain what they're about. Let's have a look. We'll hear from Diane Smith-Gander and Elizabeth Broderick at the top of this video.
We want to see an increase in women's representation in leadership in Australia, and we want it to be significant. The problem that I'm seeing at the moment is that as we take those actions, we're getting some pushback. And the pushback that we're getting is this concept of merit. So I think what we need to do is to absolutely accept that everybody in business should be judged on their merit. We don't want it to be a factor of ethnicity or a factor of gender that people are being judged on. But interestingly, the research shows us that the more an organisation describes itself as a meritocracy, the greater the gender bias in that organisation actually is. So something is really wrong.
So when I talk to people about merit and people who just have no understanding of it, I always start there. I ask them essentially the 50-50, if not, why not question. If women make up 50% of this population, of Australia's population, indeed 60% of the most educated people, why are we not seeing them in equal proportions in organisations?
Well, let's answer Elizabeth Broderick's question. Why not 50-50? Well, we heard from James Damore, formerly of Google, and he was supported by behavioural scientists around the world, that men and women are different. They have different preferences in life. Women preferring to work with people, men preferring to work with things. So you get different choice. You see, what these Stalinists don't understand is that people choose different occupations, different career paths according to their own personal preferences. And women in Australia, in terms of the 50-50 argument, they've now got the majority in GP doctors, in lawyers, in teaching, in the Australian public service, and of course have 60% of university graduates each year in Australia, so of course they're going through to good jobs according to their own preferences. I've highlighted recently in the Australian Federal Police, which is going down the path of a female-only recruitment. They just haven't got the women who want to be federal police officers. So what do? Hold a gun to their head. So these people, Smith-Gander and Broderick, don't recognise the importance of diversity. They say it's all about diversity, but they don't respect the diverse preferences of men and women. So too we know at a racial level in the school system that Asian students do so well at maths and science and go on to those type of careers because that's their free choice. Okay? This is not the old Soviet Union. We allow people to make career choices without these Stalinists at Male Champions of Change trying to force them into their preferred careers. You see, these people are social and employment commissars. They think they can run the whole system centrally. It's the old Soviet model reflected in an organisation that's unaccountable to the Australian people. I'm highlighting it here so you can get an understanding of how wrong and dangerous and damaging these people are. In terms of Smith-Gander, talking about the research, I've asked Male Champions of Change for that research about meritocracy and gender bias. I don't think it exists, and they haven't produced it. So to some extent, these people are talking through their hat. And they go on in the video to further produce wacky stuff. It's almost like Orwellian 1984 redefining the meaning of merit. Let's hear from Alan Joyce at Qantas.
And we're applying this across the entire group. This is not just in Jetstar. And one of the things we were finding, we were struggling getting to our targets of women in senior management because the definition of merit was that narrow definition. What this has allowed us to do is break through that ceiling, that barrier. And the last 2 months alone, we've had a 2% increase in the amount of senior female managers that we have at those ranks. And it is all a merit, but we have redefined what merit means.
Alan Joyce has redefined what merit means. You know, you might go to the dictionary and think merit is selection according to ability, without reference to race, gender and sexuality, but Alan Joyce, an employment commissar, has decided to redefine the meaning of a word which employment practices in society itself, in the education system, has a common, sensible understanding and meaning. So it's just ridiculous. It is Orwellian. These people have been given a power. Joyce, you know, he almost stuffed the company, but essentially running Qantas in Australia is a license to print money if you do it decently because of the lack of competition on the domestic routes. So this guy, who's got so much power and authority within his corporation and thinks he's a quasi-politician campaigning on all the diversity and same-sex marriage issues like some kind of government minister, it's all gone to his head, and he's now at the point where he's trying to redefine the meaning of merit according to his selection criteria. Well, that is just off the planet, I've got to say. And it gets even worse. Another so-called male champion of change is Martin Parkinson, the head of the Prime Minister's Department. This is Malcolm Turnbull's right-hand man in Canberra. Let's have a listen to his level of expertise, please.
The new definition of merit is actually not about merit. It's actually about understanding strategic thinking. It's actually understanding the context of your organisation. It's actually understanding what's coming across the horizon and knowing the known knowns, the known unknowns, and recognising the unknown unknowns.
Oh no, the unknown known unknowns. Seriously, what a knucklehead. The known unknown known. Would you trust that guy to run a chook raffle? Would you make him the street cleaner? He's the head of the Prime Minister's Department with all the gobbledygook, and he's trying to redefine merit as well. No, I mean, just making a fool of himself. Martin Parkinson, give it away, mate. You're not up to the job. You're a knucklehead, a goose, and that little performance there was, they're happy to put on tape. They're happy to put that, showcase it to the Australian people as the best of male champions of change, just showing how wrong-headed and hopeless these people are. So we can do a lot better than that in Australia. I mean, what a snapshot of a lousy organisation going down the wrong path for the fair future of our country. And someone who, of course, stands against all this is the great Sam Kekovich. I'm going to talk to him at length after this short break. Welcome back, and I can't say how delighted I am to have our next special guest in the studio, the great Sam Kekovich. Sam, welcome to Mark Latham's Outsiders. I've been looking forward to this interview for weeks.
Let me tell you, normally I'd say it's a pleasure, but this is an epiphany for me to be alongside you. I can't believe, I've been saying for some time to all my friends, the leader of our great nation should be Mark Latham. I didn't think I'd ever say that in the days of Simon Crean, who was a great mate of mine. In the days, the heady days of Labor, when Labor had a point of difference, and I was poles apart. I'm right at Genghis Khan, as you probably know. But the more I see of you, and the more my friends see of you, the more we're of the opinion that you should be front and square of our great nation.
Well, watch out, you'll be a permanent guest on the show if you keep saying that. Now, for anyone who's been living under a rock and doesn't know the Sam Kekovich story, Sam burst on the scene in Australian football in the late 60s as a rising star of the North Melbourne Kangaroos, or Shinboners, as we also know them. He was their great star of the 69 season when he had a bad knee injury that threatened his whole career. But he fought back from that and was a 1975 premiership player and then probably had a few rocky years leaving footy, I think that's fair to say, Sam, but then made an amazing comeback into the public arena Australia as our most sought after conference and after dinner speaker, and has become a legend for the promotion of Australian lamb, helping our farmers on Australia Day with ads that are truly amazing. We're going to look at one of those in just a short while. So, Sam, I think it's fair to say in your lifetime you've been to the top of Everest and down and up, and you're back on top now.
Well, Mark, you know, we're simple folk, we're Australian. And the true gauge of an individual, I think you'll concur with me, is that, you know, when you've slid down that slippery banister of life pulling splinters out of your bottom, you know, how you pick yourself up and dress yourself down is a true indication of where you're at. So unless you've experienced those depths of despair, you'll never understand and what it's like, the pinnacles of success. So I have been very fortunate to be associated with some very, very good people. The footy club was outstanding, corporate life was great, my family was great, my parents were great. I had nothing but a very compatible, you know, egalitarian upbringing. So, you know, life was a ball. But you're right, I've had all the ebbs and flows and the undulations in life that anyone could wish for. But, you know, they've been great learning curve, and it's been, you know, I'm eternally grateful for them.
Well, I'm sure back at the pinnacle now, the view must be splendid, but you must also be very proud of the Australia Day lamb promotion, because it's done a lot of good for our farmers, hasn't it?
Well, they're the true heroes. You know, sometimes we get it so wrong in this country. We genuflect over B-grade celebrities and broken down sports people, but our real heroes are our selfless, you know, farmers who, with great resilience and great adversity, have just plodded along and shown us the way and produced great products. Those wonderful volunteers, no fanfare, bright lights or neon signs, go about their work. And, you know, it's a pleasure. And one of the great things about the Lamb campaign, apart from, you know, the fact that it's resonated with the punters, is the fact that it's taught me a lot about empathy, and more importantly, to be able to articulate and showcase the wonderful work our farmers have done on the global stage has been, you know, filled me with an enormous sense of pride. And they're getting their just returns for their wonderful work that they've done.
Well, among the outsiders, the ads are known as magnificently anti-PC. Let's have a trip down memory lane. Look at the first of these ads from around 2006 on Australia Day. It's a reminder of just how great and outspoken the country could be, and have a bit of a laugh back then. Let's have a look, Sam.
There's nothing worse than being un-Australian. I should know. I've been Australian all my life, and I'm sickened by the creeping tide of un-Australianism eroding our great traditions, like our custom of eating lamb on Australia Day. Un-Australianism is everywhere. For example, people wearing those plastic brightly coloured flip-flop shoes with flowers on them. What's wrong with rubber thongs in simple primary colours? If I hear another person say thong when they mean those swimming costumes punchy Brazilian blokes wear up their bums, I'll do my block. Sadly, the scourge of un-Australianism has even infected our National Day. A balanced Australia Day diet should consist of a few nice juicy lamb chops and beer, and perhaps a bit of pavlova for those with a sweet tooth. Yet your long-haired, dull-bludging types are indulging their pierced taste buds in all manner of exotic, foreign, often vegetarian cuisine. Chicken burger value meals, pizzas, a number 42 with rice. It's an absolute disgrace. And people ask why we need capital punishment. Do you think the diggers in the trenches were fighting for tofu sausages? No. They were thinking of grabbing a lamb chop off the barbie with their bare fingers, sustaining third-degree burns, then sticking their hands into a relieving esky to fish out a cold one. Look at our national song, Waltzing Matilda. It's about a bloke trying to get a nice bit of lamb into his tucker bag, not spicy chicken wings. The soap-avoiding, pot-smoking hippie vegetarians may disagree with me, but they can get stuffed. They know the way to the airport, and if they don't, I'll show them. So the message is clear.
You've got to love that. I hope that archaeologists in the future, when they're digging around the ruins of Australian civilisation, they want to know what we were like, our culture was like at the turn of this century. They'll dig that out and say that was Australian larrikin humour and culture around the period of the 2000s. Now, what's happened with those ads, magnificently PC back in the day, Sam, we're all worried they're being sanitised. We've got sort of multicultural barbecues on the beach. Tell us, please tell us, that's going back to that format in 2018.
Well, I must confess, Mark, I'm a tad addled myself, for the simple reason that who would take umbrage about anything like that? Could anyone possibly be offended?
Could you screen it today, though? Wouldn't there be the outrage industry?
Well, I would have no problem screening
No, but I know, but they're out there, aren't they?
But they are out there, and it's sinful, it's shameful, it's deceitful, it's insidious that they're peddling these prevarications, you know, which are unfounded, baseless, and for some inexplicable reason they're gleaning some traction because they're all in those powerful little pockets where they disseminate their information, which are gleaning some traction with the loyal throng out there. But you know, gradually we're knocking those pillars over one at a time. Because our greatest asset, without a doubt, as I've always maintained, is our irreverence, our sense of humour, and our great culture, because our culture has got the capacity to act as a wonderful catalyst to transcend all the social evils that are prevalent in our society, like bigotry and prejudice. And those that don't understand that, and why they would want to suppress freedom of speech. And if ever our kids forget what Ridgy, Didge and Bluey means, we are absolutely delusional. Our larrikin, our wonderful sense of larrikinism is a part of our DNA. And also, what's happening today, Mark, is totally eradicating our democratic liberal process. This notion, you know, enshrined in our DNA is a sense of a fair go. And if you've got an opinion, so be it. We promote discourse and sound debate. But if you've got a view contrary to these elite leftists or whoever they are, all of a sudden you're compartmentalised, either a misogynist or a racist or a homophobic. It is pathetic.
Yeah, it is. Now, can our authentic Australian culture survive these PC attacks?
Well, I believe they do. I think sanity will ultimately prevail. Look, I know you're out in the hustings, you're out in the streets, I'm out there all the time. You know, I talk to the rank and file Australians, you know, the real Australians, and I see them all the time. I see very rare, very, very little example of these pockets of dissent or who have alternate views. I don't know where they park themselves. You know, obviously of a Monday night somewhere in the ABC, I guess. I got no idea, but very little evidence of it in my walks of life.
Yeah, no, I think your average Australian's worried about the political correctness.
They are very worried. They're very, very concerned.
What's happening to our country and its institutions, but hopefully, as you say, sanity will prevail and common sense. I think most people are wanting sort of a fight back from common sense values that, as the great John Cleese has said, just because you have a joke about a certain group, the Irish, women, gays, it doesn't mean we dislike those people. We love them. We love them so much, mate, we're bringing humour into our lives off the back of them.
Mark, with a name like Kekovich going to school in the 50s and 60s.
That's right.
Mate, you know, I was called a wog, a dago, a spag, whatever. And let me tell you, to this day, sometimes I am. But the intent of the perpetrator is not to demean, defile or disparage. It's almost a term of endearment, for God's sake.
Yeah.
I call someone a wog or a poof or whatever. You know, I know a lot of gay people, I've got a lot of gay friends. It's not to demean or disparage.
Yeah, it's a form of inclusion to have a nickname.
It is a form of inclusion to have a nickname.
If you don't have a nickname, you're in the corner sulking.
Exactly,
you missed out.
Exactly right.
So good on you. Now, with these ads, they cranked up in 2010, and you went to New York to interview and talk to a certain American businessman who's kicked on a little bit since then. Let's have a look.
I'm the unofficial ambassador of Australia, and he is the unofficial mayor of New York. It was inevitable that one day our paths would cross. Mr. Trump.
How are you, Sam?
Sam Kekovich, how are you?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Well, I'll cut to the chase. I'm here for a very, very specific purpose.
Okay.
And I'm seeking some advice and some very, very good tips.
I like it.
On Australia Day, where everyone, en masse, the whole population, have a lamb barbecue. And we get together and we bond, and globally, as you know, the landscape is dominated by prejudice and conflict. In Australia, we're about bonding and promoting goodwill and bonhomie. And I'd like to replicate that globally, and I think it's got a good feel about it.
Good. I like the idea.
It's truth. Feels like I've come up trumps already. Well, as you know, branding is very, very important, and having a catchphrase. If you don't make sense, I'm Sam Kekovich.
Makes sense is very good. I like that. I think that's good. It's so people should think about that a little bit. It has to make sense. If it doesn't make sense, forget it.
Exactly. Right? Thank you very much for your time. I'm walking out a far richer person, and I'm even more confident now of spreading the gospel and convincing the United Nations of making the January the 26th the International Australia Day. So on that note, Donald Trump.
Well, Sam, I think it's a great idea, and you're a great guy, and good luck. And I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
So long.
Now, obviously, Sam, you made that guy's political career. He'd be nothing without you. Behind the scenes, what was he like?
Well, I've got to tell you, he was charming. He was very generous with his time, very articulate.
A good bloke?
Great bloke. Yeah, he's one of us. One of us, you know, and I went in there with, no premeditated thoughts. I just went there with an open mind, thinking I got no idea. Bearing in mind at the time, he wasn't the President of the United States of America. He was just the Donald Trump, the businessman, and he also was filming then The Apprentice. But he was a breath of fresh air, and he was just just a good knockabout bloke.
And he helped you out behind the scenes, got you a good feed there in New York?
He got me a good feed. He got me a couple of things behind the scenes. He was very accommodating. No, nothing untoward,
No, of
but
course
very
not.
helpful with
Of course
restaurants
not.
and directions around New York. And
I've always thought Trump's half Australian because he's got a larrikin sense of humour. He
Yeah.
likes to take the piss out of people a bit. And
does.
he's not afraid to speak his mind. We love him, don't we?
well, he's everything you just alluded to, and probably more. He would fit in like a glove in Australia, believe me. Bit of irreverence, bit of satire, not taking himself too seriously. He takes what he does very seriously, but not himself too
But
seriously.
enjoys himself.
And he
on the way
understands the
through, yeah.
greatest art of being Australian, and that is a generosity of spirit, the sense of fair play, and self-deprecation. And don't ever forget that self-deprecation is a great virtue, the ability to take the mickey out of yourself. And that's what
Exactly.
Australia's all about. That's what our diggers, we lost 80,000 at Gallipoli and the Western Front for us to have this wonderful, wonderful state of play in this nation of democracy, where we have a freedom of speech, we say what we like, we're slightly irreverent. They would turn over in their grave now to see the direction that we're heading.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that front, your Lamb campaign on Australia Day is in a bit of strife, I've got to say, because you've got all these left-wing lunatics, local government and beyond, campaigning to abolish Australia Day. Now, you'll have no ads there, unless you turn a chicken or something, on Australia Day if they get rid of the day itself. Now, what can we do to fight back against this lunacy? Because Australia Day is no disrespect to our Indigenous friends. What it's saying is that when Western civilisation arrived here on the 26th of January 1788, a lot of good things came to Australia. Medical science, economic development, technology, democracy, learning, enlightenment, all these wonderful things. And it's something to celebrate, isn't it?
Well, I think Warren Mundine hit it on the head. He said, look, why are we blowing and why are we having these arguments and protests about the past? Whatever's transpired, right or wrong, is part of our history. Let's move forward and let's devote all our energies into something positive. And let me tell you about Australia Day. When we embarked on the Australia Day campaign, it was totally devoid of any political impact. It was all about inclusion. It was all about celebrating living in the best country on the planet. And by sharing a lamb cutlet, it was all about unity and unification. There was nothing to do with politics. And that's what it's, in simple terms, and that's what we, to this day, that was always my intent. My intent was never to drag it in any other direction, and I can't see why we should.
Well, it's a celebration of the best things about our country. And if we can't celebrate that, it's a sad old day for Australia to have our National Day abolished as they're proposing. Now, here at Mark Latham's Outsiders, we're fighting back against it. We've got our petition and campaign, saveaustraliaday.com. It's all important. We're fighting for it, especially in 2018 when the leftists will be marching on as hard as they can. saveaustraliaday.com. Can you support us, Sam?
Most certainly. Most certainly I can support you. I mean to say, I'm Australian. Any righteous Australian would, you talk about common sense, would totally be 100% behind you. We need to general the forces and just for simple common sense and for the good of the country.
Well, we're saying to them, keep their hands off our day, Australia Day. That's the theme that we're running. It's very important to preserve, in these troubled times, to preserve the best things about our culture.
Our culture's imperative. It's an imperative. And not only that, but we should promote it through our curriculums at school.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the great thing about this country, what we should also do, Mark, let me tell you, we talk about, all these issues. We talk about migration. We talk about food. We talk about energy. We talk about these raft of problems we've got in our nation. And it's all about because of our inability to be able to have discourse and our inability not to philosophically change. Because we waste billions of dollars on band-aiding issues without addressing them at the core of the problem. And if we had the courage and the strength of conviction that our forefathers taught us, we would never be in the mess that we do. Because we allow these perpetrators and these parasites to come in on the grouter and causing us enormous consternation.
Well, that's true. We've got to sort them out. And the big one is, Sam, what are we going to do about the vegans?
Well, the vegans, I think by now, I've sorted them well and truly out. Those safe-avoiding, dole-bludging, pot-smoking vegans are well and truly in the minority. And they're worse off than the Greens. God, strike a light. How are they tracking at the moment? Napoli.
Now, you can say that. We love you, Sam Kekovich, but we've got one bone to pick with you, because out of your footy career and how you became a public figure, speaking so impressively on behalf of Australian culture, you got your first big break on a program called The Fat.
It was.
Now, we all hate the bloody ABC. We hate the ABC,
No,
but you
but-
got your break there.
Yeah, I did.
What's going
No,
on?
but listen to me.
Are you a closet ABC
No,
type?
you listen to me. When I was on the ABC in the 80s and the early in the 90s, the ABC followed its charter, what it was designed to do: promote Australian talent and promote Australia and have a great level of impartiality. And that's what it was all about. You could argue to and fro. There was no venom, there was no malice, there was no intent. It was a great place to be at.
What's gone to crap? What's happened?
Well, I left.
You left.
I can't
okay.
control the world, Mark, for God's sake. We need you back. I'll be your
Well,
deputy. Oh, for
You,
a
me,
week.
and Donald Trump.
Oh, well,
Sort out the troubles of the world.
What a triumvirate.
That would be magnificent. We should be the head of the UN or something like that.
The UN. Well, they're starting to bounce back too. Trump, he sorted them out too. Instead of being just American content, now the rest of the world's coming in. He's put them all on notice.
He
Done
has
some
indeed.
very good things.
Well, we'll have to get the band back together and sort out the world's problems.
I
Sam,
like
it's
that.
been
Good
great
day.
having you on the program.
Been fantastic.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
And we look forward to your ad campaign for lamb.
I
We've
am.
all got to have our lamb cutlets on Australia Day, and most importantly, celebrate our wonderful national
Live in
day.
the best country on the planet. Get that lamb cutlet into you and embrace and unify. Put your hand out to your neighbour, salute, doff your lid, and rejoice.
Well said. That's the Australian way. Thanks for watching the program. We'll be back in a short while to have a look at Zeg's Cartoon of the Week. Well, how good is Sam Kekovich? Absolutely magnificent. Now, for the rest of the show, let's have a look at Zeg's Cartoon of the Week. And very topical, we've heard the news out of the Australian government. They're spending a lot of money, big money, on what they call gender reassignment, or what we all call sex change operations for soldiers there in the Australian Defence Force. Andrew Hastie, the federal MP, has come out against it as a waste of money and demoralising within the Defence Force. And here's Zeg pointing out that used to be known as Robbo, and now she's Roberta, and of course they've spent the money to get Roberta looking just like that, looking good girl, and not spending the money on the weapons and the actual military capability that we as Australian taxpayers would want to see from our Defence Force. Fair cop there, Zeg, well done. Absolutely appropriate. And we've got our feature, the meme of the week. We got in some strife from Nestles. They used to call themselves Nestles. They now have the fancy name Nestle. They didn't like this one. What a difference Milo makes. Milo Yiannopoulos, wasn't he fantastic on the show last week? It's marvellous what a difference Milo makes to PC, speech codes and left-wing narratives. That's from our memes department. And Nestle, come on, you've got to have a sense of humour. These memes are using all sorts of branding, and I don't think that does Milo any harm, Milo drink any harm. And of course we love Milo Yiannopoulos, who's coming to Australia later in the year. Looking forward to that 100%. Now we go to the Outsiders Outhouse. Thanks very much for all the feedback. I'm getting overwhelmed, inundated with letters and feedback about all the important subjects and many of the atrocities happening around the country. There's the email address, mark.latham@rnnmail.com. Keep the letters coming. They inform me and through the show, the viewers, about some of the things happening in Australia. And one of them is an issue we've covered in the immediate past that comes from Scott in Sydney. And he writes as follows. You'll be pleased to know that Fire and Rescue New South Wales has started its latest recruitment campaign. All females that applied last intake and missed selection were sent emails this week to reapply. Guess how many males were contacted? A big fat 0. Information sessions are also being held with sessions for women only. Guess how many are male-only sessions? A big fat 0. Males were told to go to the general information session, so go figure. But hey, there's no discrimination. The recruitment poster shows 2 female firefighters and 1 male Muslim firefighter. Absolutely disgraceful. Never in 30 years would Scott have thought he'd be embarrassed to be part of this once great organisation. So we've got the picture he refers to. I'm not 100% sure the guy's Muslim, but I suppose the guy in the middle, some attempt there at diversity. Now, Scott was pointing out that the fire brigade was going to hold a female-only information session at Surrey Hills at the Teachers Federation Conference Centre in Sydney tomorrow. But it's interesting to see what they've now put on their website following public feedback received. Yeah, I bet it was feedback. It was hostility, saying no gender segregation, no gender apartheid. If you're going to have an information session, make it for men as well as women. They're now saying the session is open to male and female potential applicants. So the public who've been pushing back against this garbage at the Fire and Rescue New South Wales, the Fire Brigade, keep it up because you're having an impact. They were forced to back down from the female-only session that Scott referred to, and now they've got to include men as well at Surrey Hills in Sydney tomorrow. And it's worth pointing out, you want to sort of join the dots, you want to round the circle here, that the head of the Fire Brigade in New South Wales, Paul Baxter, yes, he too is a member of Male Champions of Change. And he's been outed as a dickhead because the public outrage about the female-only session has been so hostile that he's been forced to back down and be inclusive by allowing men to come in. Our next correspondence comes from Darren in North Queensland. We have some crazy and dangerous stuff up here in Cairns Mark. We have marine stingers, crocs, highly venomous snakes, but the most hazardous things are the species known as Cairns Regional Council and Warren Hench. He's the federal MP up there, supposedly a Liberal Party guy. The attached photograph shows that the council saw fit to install a wonderful rainbow crossing across the esplanade from the lagoon to McDonald's over the recent school holiday period. Most people I know were pretty annoyed about it and have no doubt that lunatic Hench had something to do with it. Keep up the good fight, as this country has gone completely and totally bonkers over the past few years, and I hope something gives soon and normality returns. Well, Darren, we all certainly hope for that. There's the crossing, wouldn't you think? Wouldn't you think all the things a council could spend money on that have better things to do with their resources than waste it on a rainbow crossing, which is probably going to be distracting people, minimises pedestrian safety, and no wonder Darren and many others in North Queensland think that is an absolute joke. We have a feedback from John in Melbourne, and he was learning that Sam Kekovich was going to be on the program, so he writes as follows. I've been saving a comment for a rainy day, so here goes on your program. Sam Kekovich is the king of lamb promotion, almost fanatically so. Therefore, I have to ask, John asks, is lamb a phobia? Islamophobia. Boom, boom, John. Well done. Funny enough, mate. Good stuff. And when it comes to humour, my old mate in southwest Sydney, Nelson Wu, one of the very best dentists in the country, has sent through a little video we're going to watch. It's called The Nudist Cricket Match.
Look at that idiot. There's always one, isn't there?
Well, you've got to love that, haven't you? The nudist cricket match. You've still got to have a laugh in Australia, surely. And that I found to be very, very amusing indeed. Now, the left lunatic of the week, well, they've been in the news, the whole family. Lisa Wilkinson, the bloke she's married to, here he is. Here's a picture of him. Oh yes, it's the red bandana. That's a reference to the fact that Peter Fitzsimons, not long ago, described a South African security guard as a gorilla. So that's in honour of that dreadfully bigoted statement, but of course he gets away with it because he's part of the leftist elites in Australia, Peter Fitzsimons, and Zeg's got him there. Zeg, of course, had been drawing up Fitzsimons in the Left Lunatic of the Week montage. Pick me, pick me, pick me. So finally, Zeg, you'll be happy to learn, we've got the Left Lunatic of the Week, Peter Fitzsimons there with his Mossman Fashion House, the red bandana, such a worthy winner. You can see Lisa there just to his left. She's typical of the leftist elites now. The gender pay gap issue comes down to whether or not a woman gets $2.3 million a year at Channel 9. And if she had, they would have sacked 10 lower paid workers, but all the left feminists are on Lisa's side instead of the lower paid workers. Doesn't that expose their elitist priorities? Now, why have we nominated Peter Fitzsimons? Well, he's on the Sunday sports show on Channel 9. We'll see how long that little gig lasts for him in the current circumstances. But he was debating Emma Freedman, the host of the program, about the controversy that Richmond AFL club won the comp. They get the premiership medal around their neck, and later on there's a photograph emerged. You couldn't identify the woman, but you saw her beautiful body with the medal around her neck, and there's an outrage about it, whether or not the photograph should have been released and shared on social media. Well, the player was at fault, but Emma Freedman was making a point on the reverse side of the argument. Let's see how that panned out with Peter Fitzsimons.
out, you're suspended for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it is. But the AFL has to take a stand on this and say, we are not doing this anymore. We have a sad history of mistreating women and we're not doing it anymore. Finish. What do you say, Emma? What do you say in your Richmond colours?
Yeah, I am in Richmond colours this morning. My opinion on it, Peter, is don't take your clothes off. To be honest.
Oh, so it's her fault?
No.
Oh,
see, I knew you'd do this.
It's not.
I knew
I
you'd do this.
I didn't say that, Peter.
Well, you say she takes her clothes off.
If you're in a position where you think you might be put in a vulnerable position later on, for me, I wouldn't take my clothes off.
Neither would I.
Well, there you go.
But that's not. You're risking blaming the victim.
No, I
What about Sally? What about Sally? What about Sally's view?
And don't put words in my mouth. Thank you very much.
So the point is, Emma Freedman's made a sensible point for the young lady, and women like her. Keep your clothes on. If you don't want to end up in these photographs that can potentially be misused, keep your clothes on. Good advice. I'm sure most fathers would have that advice for their daughters. Keep your clothes on. And Peter Fitzsimons, if he truly respects women, why was he interrupting? Why was he verbaling Emma Freedman, putting words in her mouth to say she was blaming the victim? She wasn't blaming the victim. She was giving some common sense advice as well as making the point, as they did on the panel, that the player was at fault. There were two sides to that story, 2 points of responsibility, and Emma Freedman made a valid point, and there's Peter Fitzsimons saying that he respects women, but verbaling Emma Freedman unacceptably. Now, pull your head in, Peter. You can do a lot better than that. That's just quite ridiculous, but you are a worthy left lunatic of the week, and all in the family now because Lisa Wilkinson got one earlier in the year. So that's our program for the night. The last that we'll have free to air on YouTube, if we can use that expression. Please remember the new subscription model to watch us next Wednesday night at 8 p.m. You need to go to that website, marklathamsoutsiders.com/watch. It's there on the screen, marklathamsoutsiders.com/watch. $8 a month, $80 a year, or less than $70 for the early bird package, less than $1.50 a week to keep us going, to provide the alternative to the mainstream media. And for all the value you get out of that, you can see the Rebel website, therebel.media/shows, therebel.media/shows. You get pretty good value, I can assure you, out of that particular package. So thanks for all the people who've supported us on the YouTube format. Before that, Facebook. We're now moving to a subscription format. Please support us there. We've got valuable work and valuable information to get out, so we'll talk to you next week. Cheers.